Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Like maybe a few seconds ahead of time. But before I get started, quick question. For those who are here, who's already using AIP, Azure Information Protection today? Great. What are you doing here? You already know everything I'm going to talk about. No, just kidding. So first of all, welcome to this 20-minute theater session about Azure Information Protection and Exchange Online. What this session is about is not a deep dive into AIP, nor a deep dive in Exchange Online. It's just me talking a little bit about the quirks you can have with AIP and Exchange Online and how you can deal with them both together. My name is Michael van Hoornbeek, better known as Van Hybrid, easier to spell in English. Experience with AIP is mainly from the field, working with customers, getting it deployed. I do have a long background in Exchange Online, hence why I try and get those two things married. I do promise to you I will not have a lot of slides. It's more demo than slides, but I do want to set the scene a little bit. So I saw a couple of you say, hey, we're using AIP. So I just want to quickly mention, what is AIP, right? Cloud-based classification engine, if you will. This is a very 2-second short sentence of what it means, but basically allows you to classify documents, put a label on that, and then based on that, you can potentially add security, right? Everyone knows AIP because of the rights management templates that you can apply to that to make sure that it is encrypted, that only certain people can see data, right? It applies to documents that you protect using AIP labels or the protection that are attached to those labels, but that could just as easily happen to an email, either manually or automatically, right? That's from a 10,000-foot view that what AIP is. Now, in order to get AIP, there's two licenses. There's AIP P1, AIP P2, which either allow you to do the manual classification or manual plus automatic classification based on document properties and so forth and so on, right? Again, very high-level overview of what it is and what it can do. Now, when you send an AIP-protected message, right, the experience the end user will get, and I'll showcase it later, is very similar to what you get when you send an OME, so an Office Message Encryption encrypted message, right? The end user gets an encrypted email. It goes through the same process of, going through the portal where that message is rendered inside a sort of wrapper, if you will. Again, we'll get to that just in a minute. Now, the thing is, because AIP is very similar to OME, at least from an experience point of view, a lot of organizations struggle to understand, well, when do we use AIP, Azure Information Protection, and when should we be using OME, Office Message Encryption? Because there is a very thin line between both, right? OME, Message Encryption, obviously is Exchange only, right? Exchange Online only, just for messaging, and has a very limited set of capabilities and scope. AIP itself can go beyond just email, Word, Excel, all the other Office files, but can integrate with that as well. Now, for a long period of time, AIP and OME have been very separate, right? Microsoft has gone through a lot of trouble and work in order to get both of them combined, right? Where to the point you can actually use parts of OME to use the same protection as you have based on the labels and the policies in AIP. And then Office 365 itself had its own labeling engine, which was separate from AIP. So you had these three systems, right? AIP, OME, and data classification in Office 365, each offering similar capabilities, not entirely integrated, yet with a certain overlap. Now, the good thing is that unified labeling in Office 365 allows you to create those labels in Azure Information Protection, and those will trickle through into your Office 365 data classification, where you can actually start leveraging those as well, combining the experience that you have across these technologies. So the road where we're going to is a lot better. However, there's still a few quirks here and there in the integration which need a specific approach. Now, before we go into the demo, quick primer on message encryption, again, just for messaging. And the beautiful thing about the encryption in Office 365, right, even if it's within your own organization, if I were to encrypt a message and send that to my colleague in the same tenant, I do not get that wrapper message, as you can see on the right-hand side. For instance, an external recipient in Gmail gets the, hey, you've been sent an encrypted message, click here to open up the message. But because I'm in the same organization, because I might have the same permissions or the permissions to read the document, it will just open up the email, as you can can see here in my personal email address, and it said, well, it was encrypted with the do not forward encryption template on there, which, as you can see, will prevent me to copy the contents, forward the message, or anything else, right? Or add recipients when replying to that message. So that's from a, again, 10,000-foot overview what message encryption and AIP can do for you. So let's now dive into how that relates to Exchange Online and why that is relevant. So let me switch over to my demo machine. What you can see here basically is the Azure Information Protection portal in the Azure portal, where I've defined a couple of labels. This is my live environment. I use this all the time in production. I've got 4 labels. I've got personal data, I've got public data, which is my default classification, means anything I can send to anyone. I've got confidential data internally, and then confidential restricted, which means only certain people in my organization can actually get to that content, right? Now, based on those labels that I have defined with their protection, I've also created a policy. I've kept it simple, one policy. Then again, there's not many people in my organization, so it makes it really easy. I've got one policy that defines who gets these labels, and I've also added a couple of other things, right? I've defined that not every document needs to have a label, because this is mostly from a demo perspective that I use this, but also I'm not subject to any regulations. I'm not heavy into the data classification capabilities because I don't need it. Obviously, as an organization, you can ensure that people must classify data that they create or a message that they send through email, that it must have a label applied to them, right? If you're in a heavily regulated environment, it's something you might want to do. Now, the integration, the first touch point with Exchange Online there is that you can automatically classify an email based on the attachment that you add to the email, right? So let's imagine I create a document in Word where I have a restricted scope, where I limit the amount of people that can read the document, I apply encryption. If I then add that message or that Word document as an attachment to the email, I can, through this policy, control whether that email automatically gets that same classification. Now, there is a challenge to that from a functional perspective, because it's not because I add an attachment that only a certain amount of people should be able to see that I don't want anyone else to read the content of that message, right? So you might want to be careful if you want to classify the documents or classify messages that you send the same way that you do with the attachments assigned to those messages. And I'll get to that in just a minute on how that relates to the end user. So again, the policy that we have. Now, what does this look like, right? So let me switch over to my mail client here, and let me open up a new message. So basically, when I try and send a message over to my test email address here, I can choose to, from within OA here, encrypt the message. Now, we're not talking AIP just yet. I'm talking about OME, right, where I have the ability to encrypt the message, change the permissions on the message, either use the confidential restricted, what you saw earlier, the labels that I have in Azure Information Protection, or I can use the default templates that are available in Office Message Encryption using the do not forward or the encrypt message, right? So I'm going to encrypt this message by default, add a test, and send it off to that external recipient. Again, this is no magic, this is no trickery. It's very straightforward. When the message gets in, and let me actually go here, what you will see is that in a minute, there will be, normally, if the demo gods are with me, a message will come in with the same experience as what we had before. Now, while that message is being sent, let me go back and create a new message. Let's use the same recipients. However, this time, I'm going to add an attachment that has a specific classification. Now, I have 2 files here on my desktop. I've got a personal file, which is just a simple test file to which I applied a certain label. That label, as you can see here, is a personal label, right? I also have another file, which is a restricted file, very simple to use, where I have another label set, the confidential restricted. Now, you're all familiar probably with DLP rules in Office 365, where we can restrict access to certain types of content in Office 365, in Exchange, in SharePoint, and so forth and so on. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about today is one of the limitations that you have when you're using AIP labels in an attachment of an email, right? So before I send out these messages by testing, I want to go through my DLP policies here. There we go. And what you can see here is I've got a couple of DLP policies, like prevent sharing internal info. That DLP policy, when we take a look at it, basically what it does, it adds a DLP policy for SharePoint websites that whenever I use personal content, and again, this is not a real use case, it's just to demo and showcase the technology, I want to prevent access for external people to that content, because obviously it's personal data in this case, right? Now, how I did this is create the DLP policy, add a policy setting, and I said, well, detect personal content where the document property has sensitivity of personal. Now, what does that mean? Whenever I apply a label, an AIP label to a document, for instance, a Word document, it adds a bunch of properties. As part of those properties, you can actually see them here, these document properties. It adds a bunch of AIP label properties, but it also adds the sensitivity with the name. The value of that sensitivity is the name of the label that I applied. So basically what that DLP policy says here is whenever you get a document uploaded into SharePoint, and whenever that document is shared with an external person, restrict that access to that document because I do not want you to share that document, right? Obviously, it's a DLP risk otherwise. So what we have here is a test website where I went ahead and already uploaded a bunch of files and tried sharing them with that external recipient, that Gmail account. And as you can see here, the documents that are being labeled as personal or internal, whatever you'd like, they have a mention where, as you can see here, it means, hey, this item is protected by a policy in your environment. It cannot be shared with people outside your organization. So even though it is encrypted, maybe, I'm still limiting the ability to share that document outside of my organization. Now, with AIP encryption, obviously, even if I were to share, they wouldn't be able to open it because they're not in my organization. They might not have access to the document, which in itself is maybe a double protection. Now, in a lot of organizations, AIP is not used to apply RMS templates. In a first phase, it's just used to add labeling to classify data, not necessarily restrict data. And to be honest, when deploying AIP, that's also a very good first step. Because if you're going to provide a label to your end users and immediately start encrypting data, they need to go through a very steep learning curve, right? So this DLP policy from the get-go allows you to even limit access, although the document is not being protected through a rights management template just yet, right? That's great. Now, DLP policies themselves are very powerful. One of the things I want to go over is the ability that here, when you create a policy, you can define where that policy applies. OneDrive, SharePoint, and Exchange Online. So far, so good, right? I mean, it works just beautifully for SharePoint Online, so why wouldn't it work for Exchange Online? Well, what I have here is another policy that exactly does the same thing, right? It detects personal contents, but for Exchange Online. And what it does, it says, well, if you have an email, right, where the document property is sensitivity personal, I do not want you to allow that to send that message, or in this case, I'm going to apply the template to it that says, do not forward the message. Simple enough, right? Unfortunately, the caveat here is, it only works if the email itself has that label. So what that means is, this DLP policy will only prevent me to send that message, or encrypt that message with the do not forward template, when I create a new email. There we go. When I create a new email and actually apply a label like I just did. Because this way, that message gets a label, gets a property attached to it. Now imagine that I don't do this, right? I'm going to remove the label. I don't want a label on there. And if I now were to add a personal or a restricted file, I mean, I'm going to go overboard and send that over. And actually, I can't do this just yet. This message will go out just fine. So my DLP policy that I just created didn't do anything. Although it said, if I'm trying to share a document with sensitivity personal, do not allow me or apply a message encryption that says do not forward. So that DLP policy looks at the message itself, but doesn't look at the attachments in the message. So we're a little bit presented with an issue right then and right there, right? If you then take a look at building the DLP policy itself, it does not allow you to go into the attachments properties. It actually does. I'm maybe overstepping my boundaries here a little bit, but when you take a look at the conditions, you can take a look at the email attachments. Content could not be scanned, i.e. it's a zip file with a password or anything, or the content didn't complete scanning, or the attachment is password protected. It doesn't tell me if the attachment's properties contain these settings, which is what I really want here. So how do we work around this limitation, and how do we get this up and running? Well, that's fairly, I'm not going to say simple, but the first thing that we need is transport rules. Now, I already have a transport rule set up here where I'm restricting the ability to share data outside of Office 365 when an attachment to a message is detected that has a certain capability. So while this is loading, and it is a little bit slow today, the way that you do this is, first of all, you have to go to your AIP labels for which you want to start detection, right? You want to go out and detect specific types of content. In this case, I would like that any message that is sent outside the organization that has a confidential or a confidential restricted label should be prevented to be shared. Even if there is encryption on there, I don't want them to leak outside the organization. So I go into the label itself, and all the way to the bottom of the email, you actually get this nice long GUID, right? I suggest you don't try to remember it, just copy paste like I just did, and then go into the transport rules. The demo gods are not with me today, so let's refresh this for a second. And then try and get the settings for you. But basically, you build a transport rule, and in the transport rule, you actually have the capability to define a condition that says if a attachment's properties are. And basically what that transport rule does, and for whatever reason it's not firing up right now, it's actually looking at the properties I showed earlier. It is looking at this here. More specifically, I'm not looking for the sensitivity, the label sensitivity. I'm looking for the name of the AIP label, and it starts with MSIP dash underscore label underscore the GUID I have colon true. And unfortunately, the cloud is not with me today. So let me try that one more time. Just seems that internet is down. But what it will do is, it will do exactly what you see here. Luckily, I did prepare earlier. But I add the attachment to an email, it fires off. So from an end user perspective, I can send the email. However, transport rule kicks in. It doesn't do that on the client side, right? It doesn't give you a policy. You could do that theoretically. But what it will do is, hey, hold on. There is a custom mail flow rule created by someone at your organization that prevents the sharing of that document. Now, in this case, I chose to reject the message with an NDR message so that the end user knows. But transport rules are very powerful. So by adding the AIP rule into that transport rule, I could send the message off for approval to the manager. I could reject the message, but send it to another email for reporting or for auditing and so forth and so on. I could just monitor it without enforcing. So this is one of the ways that you can actually leverage the AIP labels in Exchange Online and bypassing the limitation that exists in that DLP policy. Now, it's very unfortunate that for some reason the internet isn't working here because it was earlier. But what you will get is exactly that message doesn't go out. Now, in order to show you how that works is I did send another message earlier with a different classification, which I allowed to pass through to the external recipient. And as you can see here, this is where these labels are being added into a message where you can exactly see what I was talking about, is that it's looking for the document properties where the AIP label is enabled. And obviously, you see all the other labels that exist in my environment, but those aren't set to true. So again, this is very quick high-level overview to show you what you can do with AIP labels in Exchange Online, right? So you're not confined to just using Office Message Encryption, but you can actually go further and more intelligently use the AIP labels to restrict access, bypassing the limitations in DLP just by using the transport roles there. Now, one more thing I did want to mention regarding the implementation of Azure Information Protection is that, do not go in all in, right? Do not immediately try and provide 10 labels. Keep it simple, keep it easy, right? The built-in labels in Office 360 or in Azure Information Protection are pretty good. You might want to change the naming so that it's more familiar for your end users. I mean, if you've got certain classifications already, classification labels defined in your organization, a data structure, you can leverage those. And also, I would suggest not to immediately start encrypting data. If you're not used to encrypting data from today, the step up for your users is huge, right? So let them get familiar with Azure Information Protection by applying labels, maybe adding a footer or a header into a document. And once the culture in your organization exists to use that, you can ease into the more restrictive approach where you're going to start adding encryption to documents so that they can only be viewed by certain people, or that you can go into a model where you can actually start restricting the ability to send messages outside the organization, have other people access that content as well. So this being said, at the end of my 20 minutes, if you've got any questions, feel free to walk over to me, and I thank you all for being here.